There are many iconic video game characters that as soon as I mention the name, you'll know them right away, like Sonic, Mario, Pikachu, or Kirby, or popular cartoon characters like SpongeBob, Squidward, or Piggy Pie. But what if? .exe Games. You probably might have heard of them during the early days of gaming on YouTube, the type of game that turns well-known video game or cartoon characters into a disturbing version, the genre of horror games that dominated the internet during the early 2010s. Games after games had been created and played. In the sea of .exe games, the first one that I'm sure many people first came across was Sonic.exe, considering that it was also the most popular among many that exist. There are ones about Mario, which is also popular because, well, it's Mario, ones like SpongeBob, or Legend of Zelda called Ben.exe, which is based on the Ben Drowned creepypasta. If you don't know what a creepypasta is, it's basically a creepy story created by people on the internet, like Slenderman, or the most infamous one like Jeff the Killer, which I'm sure everyone knows about it at this point. You can kind of see .exe games as a corrupted version of childhood. The things that became your fond memory, seeing them turned into something sinister. But why would anyone create such a game that turns child-friendly characters into something so frightening? Was it because people became twisted and wanted to turn the beloved childhood characters into demonic entities to scare the others? To answer that, let's go back to where it all started. The earliest known .exe game someone ever created, believe it or not, was Sonic.exe. But the thing is that the game itself never existed in the first place, because it was only a story that originates from creepypasta, which was created by the user JC the Hyena, who posted on the creepypasta website in 2011. Here's a summary of that story. The original story follows a teenager named Tom Miller, who receives a CD from his friend Kyle Scott, and a note telling him to destroy it. Finding Kyle's warning to be a joke, Tom decides to play it, finding it to be a haunted version of the 1991 game Sonic the Hedgehog. The haunted version of this game contains disturbing sound effects from other video games, as well as an eldritch entity known as the titular Sonic.exe, or known as just X, who takes on a form almost identical to Sonic, with blood-stained blackened sclera and glowing red pupils. In each of the 3 levels, Tom plays as Tails, Knuckles, and Dr. Eggman, only for them to be killed and enslaved by X at the end of them. After all the characters are killed, a hyper-realistic image of the character appears with a caption, "I am God." Hearing a voice say, "Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom." Tom turns around, only to see a stuffed Sonic toy crying blood on his bed, his fate unknown. After hearing this story, I'm pretty sure there are some people out there who were really trying to search for this game, for those who were not familiar with the creepypasta. And 1 year later, someone finally brought this game to life. A user by the name of Mist Crimson posted this game on the website Game Jolt in August 2012, and the game follows pretty much what was written in the creepypasta. When this game first came out, undoubtedly, many people were a bit scared and confused by it, especially when it comes to people who weren't used to horror games. Since the game contains glitchy visuals, unsettling music, and jump scares, some people that came across it may think that this was cursed, or even to think that their PCs might actually be haunted from now on. Soon later, the idea that Sonic the Hedgehog became a scary story began to slowly attract the internet to look deeper into. While this game had scared some people, there were also others who had a different reaction, specifically from those who had been around creepypastas or gaming horror for some time. On forum websites like Reddit, 4chan, or Something Awful, many users commented that Sonic.exe came off as kinda cheesy. People pointed out how the game relied heavily on edgy cliches like hyper-realistic faces, the evil laughter, and the spill of blood everywhere. The game didn't build an atmosphere, it just hit you over the head with gimmick horrors. Some people felt like it's more of a parody of horror than horror itself, even to compare it to a middle school creative art project. As this game originates from creepypasta, many even called the original story cringy and over the top, with people saying that it was just another copycat of Ben Drowned. If you have never heard of Ben Drowned Creepypasta, the story is kind of similar, where a college student buys a copy of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask from a creepy old man, later finding out that the copy of the game was possessed by the spirit of Ben. When he starts the game, everything feels wrong, from NPCs acting weird, music playing in reverse, to creepy glitches happening. Eventually the game is taken over by Ben. As the story goes on, the player realizes that the haunting didn't just occur within the gameplay, but outside the game as well, like finding out that his whole computer is being used by Ben. So while some people were freaking out over Sonic.exe, mostly the younger ones, those who were more familiar with the internet horror were pretty much calling it bad or joking about it, which is what made this game started to gain attention because of its somewhat controversial state at the time. With Sonic being made scary and all, the internet began to like the idea of creating something eerie for a child-friendly icon, where everything you used to know about it becomes wrong and terrifying, and this soon after became a template that kicked off a wave of .exe games. Sonic.exe began blowing up when people started posting gameplay on YouTube, many of which are familiar faces. When that idea of turning something child-friendly into something horrifying was already in mind for a lot of people, many characters besides Sonic began to be made into .exe games, like Mario, Luigi, SpongeBob, or even Toy Story, following the same formula: haunted game file, distorted visuals, familiar characters turned disturbing, as well as having jump scares and glitches to startle the player. Seeing people's nostalgia twisted into something broken and evil has become the core concept of .exe games, and with the scare that a lot of people get when they come across one of these games, they also share them around, possibly to see how the others would react. Although .exe games usually revolved around these iconic characters, they were being spread everywhere, and this genre of horror game was constantly getting its traction and showed almost no sign that it's going to decline anytime soon. Despite that, the criticism towards those games also keep on growing. People pointed out that each new .exe creation felt like the same story: hyper-realistic blood, corrupted game files, and characters crying blood tears. Each game is still being referred to as cringe, which made some people to even accuse .exe games of dragging down the entire creepypasta image, turning once creepy stories into jokes. Funnily enough, the ever-growing trend of .exe games had led to the Ben Drowned Creepypasta, the story that was well regarded in the community, to even have its own .exe game, that is, Ben.exe. While people at first complained that Sonic.exe was a cheap ripoff of Ben Drowned, they now have the creepypasta they know and love come to life. As the .exe community slowly thrives, the criticism within the creepypasta community was also getting louder, that in January 2014, the Sonic.exe story got removed from the creepypasta website by the admins, saying that the story was badly written compared to the other ones. This had led the creator of the story, JC the Hyena, to write a blog post ranting about it. Though the full post doesn't exist anymore, there is a small portion of it that was archived, which is honestly pretty funny to read. Despite its removal, the words have spread on the internet and caused even more people to look into .exe games. Eventually, the story was reinstated and now available to read on the website once again. With all the kerfuffle that happened, many .exe games that came out were still following the same formula of having glitches, jump scares, and blood. But some creators who were already familiar with them realized how repetitive this genre of horror game has become, and so many started to put more effort into them, as well as adding some kind of depth into each game, which got more people into the community wanting to see what's ahead for this gaming space. While there were many .exe games that are pretty much a copy and paste of one another, there were also .exe games that actually stand out, which came out sometime after there was a lot of complaints in the community, especially sometime after the Sonic.exe story had been removed from the creepypasta website. Some later games started to have a build-up to the story and focus more on a creepy atmosphere instead of just jump scares. People on forum websites continued to call out bad games while also talking about good games. From what started as a weird little trope in horror games, .exe genre now turned into a full-blown subculture. With this, there are some games that are fairly notable within the community. So why don't we take a look at some of them. Sonic the Spirits of Hell is one of many .exe games that is well received by the community. The game adapted from Sonic.exe and was given a lot more structure and care than most of the games people were seeing at the time. While the game lets you play as different characters trying to escape from the evil Sonic, which is pretty much like the original game, it feels like a full-fledged and polished game. Instead of just a linear gameplay and having them killed by a corrupted Sonic, there were actual dialogues, more levels, choices, and even boss battles. Unlike the original Sonic.exe where there's nothing much to explore, people could keep playing the game to see what else they could uncover. The game begins where Sonic is running through Green Hill Zone when he gets a call from Tails. He tells Tails that something feels off. There are no animals around, and the area is completely deserted. Soon after, Sonic spots something unusual and Tails wants him to stay alert. Sonic brushes it off, saying he will be fine, but then their communication cuts off. While Tails is unaware of what truly happened, a cutscene appears showing that a mysterious demon has possessed Sonic. After that, you get to choose which character to play, and the game tells you to choose your choice carefully, as whether the characters will live or die all depends on you. The game has multiple endings with bad endings and a true ending where our characters survive and are able to piece together what truly happened. The game was praised for pushing beyond what .exe game could do and for adding more emotional stakes and branching storylines. With all that being mentioned, Spirits of Hell showed that .exe games could be more than just a game that tries to be scary and has nothing meaningful behind it, and that they could have lore and depth, making it one of the few games that stand out. Really Happy Mouse is a game inspired by the Suicide Mouse creepypasta. If you are familiar with the creepypasta and you have seen this video on YouTube, then you know exactly what to expect. At the start of the game, right off the bat, you get thrown with a jump scare. You then play as Mickey Mouse going through the town, and your goal is to collect bow ties to maintain the sanity level while avoiding various threats that can reduce it. As Mickey's sanity declines, the world around and the audio become increasingly disturbing. If the sanity reaches zero, the game shows a series of eerie images together with loud and really disturbing sounds. While this game is not on the same level as Sonic the Spirits of Hell, it also features multiple endings based on the player's final sanity level, ranging from a cheerful to a grim and unsettling conclusion. Even though the game contains some jump scares, like right at the start of the game, it has done a good job at messing with you by putting in the sanity mechanic that builds up the dread, as well as a slow degradation of the world and the character you play. The game was notable not just for being disturbing, but for even trying to break your computer. Really Happy Mouse is another .exe game that shows how a simple game can leave you with an unforgettable, haunting experience. Mario the Music Box is one of the games that truly went beyond the EXE horror style, with its strong narrative, character depth, and its own fleshed out storyline. The game took a lot of inspiration from RPG Maker horror games like Corpse Party, Mad Father, and The Witch's House. The story of this game is that Mario had heard old rumors about an abandoned mansion near the Mushroom Kingdom. According to the stories, anyone who entered was never seen again. At first, Mario and Princess Peach planned to explore the place together, but he decided to go alone. While inside, he discovers a mysterious music box playing by itself. When he interacts with it, this would trigger the house itself to turn against him, trying to eat him alive. As you progress, the game slowly turns itself into psychological horror, filled with dark secrets, disturbing imagery, and a growing sense of dread. As Mario delves deeper into the mansion, he uncovers the dark and tragic history of the people who once lived there. Throughout the game, you have to go through various dangers, where you explore dark rooms that are haunted by evil spirits, and make difficult decisions that will determine your ending. You have to navigate through the mansion by solving various puzzles which connect to the place's deeper lore. You also face deadly traps and unexpected choices that can lead to Mario's death or further his descent into madness. With multiple endings in the game, each playthrough gives a different perspective on the story, making you want to explore all possibilities to uncover the full truth of this cursed mansion. What is impressive about this game is that it doesn't rely on flashy visuals or over-the-top horror. Rather, it focuses on atmosphere and storytelling to keep the player intrigued. The fact that Mario the Music Box was created from RPG Maker shows that with a simple game engine, you can craft a rich gameplay experience. The game also stands out for how it handles its emotional themes, whether it's the sorrow of the house's past residents or Mario's slow loss of control. The game taps into those fears on a personal level. In the end, Mario the Music Box is a thoughtful reimagining of an innocent character explored in the theme of grief, trauma, and guilt, making it one of the most memorable creations among many EXE horror games. This one might be a bit obscure. Unlike any other .exe games that I have mentioned, this one is a 3D game, and it's based on a Ben-drawn creepypasta, like Ben.exe. In the game, you are spawned in an empty world with a few structures in it, and the area is surrounded by hills. As you keep exploring and get into one of the structures, you encounter a Ben-drawn statue in a corner. You are then being forced to stare at the figure until everything goes to black. Before you get to continue playing, you are shown with a series of texts trying to communicate with you. The game then takes control of your computer and even tries to shut down your PC if you try to close the game. This game took it to a whole nother level when it comes to breaking the fourth wall. After that, you are left to wander in the dark world, and things continue to escalate when you face a character speaking to you as well as giving you a corrupted timer. There are several times that the game exits itself, and when you reopen the game, you are presented with a different scene. Much like the past games I have mentioned, there are multiple endings, and to get the good one, which is a lot more difficult and complex, you have to play the right song on the ocarina. The game emphasizes purely on psychological manipulation with the environment around you, and even your computer. It's one of the few EXE games that truly succeeds at messing with your head by creating an experience that keeps you second-guessing your PC. This had even led some people to think that this game might be a virus. Without that being mentioned, this makes Remember.exe probably one of the most traumatizing experiences that will stay with you long after you close the game. Without the .exe games being made, there also tend to be parodies. A lot of parodies, actually. While they can surely be seen as a comic relief from the scares that .exe games normally give, they can also be seen as a reminder of how overdone the .exe style game had become. And while they were mostly made for fun, they actually helped to keep the .exe genre alive in a weird way, by giving people something to laugh about, even as things started to lose their edge. At this point, there were bad games, good games, parody games being made almost constantly. For a while, after everyone was all in on the EXE games, the constant flood of low-effort games, recycled plots, and overused tropes started to wear people down. While there is still some creativity, the original sense of intrigue and appeal that got people into the games began to slowly fade away. The period that the .exe game peaked for some time, it of course didn't last forever, and the community started to become burnt out without those games they have played or watched. And at the end of the day, .exe games are just .exe games, the kind of game that uses the same iconic characters, games where everything is normal until everything around becomes corrupted. By this point, the .exe game formula had been overused and repeated too often already. Among the notable .exe games, the community was just filled with more games that added nothing new, each one chasing the same horror that had worked years ago. And for a lot of people, that horror was long gone. Fans who once loved the genre began moving on. YouTubers who often played .exe games started focusing on other games, and people also stopped watching the gameplays. What once felt like a shocking twist on childhood nostalgia had become repetitive and predictable. The horror that originally drew people in had lost its appeal, replaced by a style that is now known for being overused and uninspired. Audiences had grown numb to the same recycled tropes. Instead of feeling scared, people mostly felt bored or even laughed at the games. Longtime fans called the trend lazy and stagnant. Even the broader horror community stopped engaging with .exe games, saying there weren't that many new ideas to explore. Nonetheless, there are a few devoted fans who continue to engage in the community. Some creators who are still in keep trying new ideas, pushing for more meaningful stories and more refined gameplay. But for the most part, the .exe trend had died down. What used to be big in the gaming world slowly became a small niche for a group of people who are still interested in them. Although EXE games have faded away from most people's attention, you can still see the influence they have in modern horror. Ideas like haunted media, creepy twists on childhood nostalgia, and using familiar visuals to show someone losing their mind can be found in new forms of horror creation. In a way, you can see that EXE games helped inspire things like analog horror and internet-based ARGs. With series like Local 58, Gemini Home Entertainment, and the Mandela Catalog that took the same sense of unease of something familiar gone deeply wrong and gave it a more grounded and cinematic approach. Instead of a haunted game file, it's a corrupted VHS tape. The fourth wall breaking fear and slow burning tension that EXE games played with became a foundation for entire subgenres of online horror. You may even see the influence of EXE games in modern indie games like Doki Doki Literature Club and One Shot, which took the concept of breaking the game from within and turned it into a way to tell deeper stories. Instead of just using cheap jump scares, they added layers of meaning, surprises, and emotions. So while the interest in EXE games have faded away from most of the people, they became a lesson for a generation of new creators that all it takes to make a good horror is a clever twist on something you are familiar with. So after all, .exe games weren't started off by some twisted individuals that wanted to scare other people with the game they love, but it started from a long scary story which soon turned into a real game. People began to like the idea of creating a disturbing version of your favorite childhood characters, which soon turned into a subculture. While many EXE games were not the best of games, often edgy or even cringe-inducing, they were born from a place of genuine curiosity and creativity. The aim wasn't really to ruin the beloved games, but rather to twist them, exploring how far these familiar characters and worlds could be pushed before they become something unsettling. Even though the EXE genre is no longer prominent like back in the day, its influence remains deeply ingrained in the internet culture and gaming history. Though its time in the spotlight has passed, the impact it has on horror storytelling, indie games, and the people who experienced it is something that will never be forgotten.